friends, welcome back. So, we're starting again on our death card model. So at this point, we've got a base color on almost everything, whether it be the black or the greens or various metallic colors. And our little kind of violet for our little guys and any kind of gross fleshy bits. So we have a couple things that we could do now, but what we're going to do is we're going to start layering up colors. So, for the greens, these are going to be the next two colors we're using. We're using Camouflage Green and we're using Olive Drab. And you can see down here, I really love this for Army Painter paints. In the bottom here, you can kind of see the difference in the tone. So we could use one or the other of these. And I'm thinking we're probably going to choose to use the slightly lighter one. Now we could mix, what we're probably going to end up doing though is this Woodland Camo is the paint that we used for the base coat for the armor panels. And we're going to be mixing it with this to get like the transition, and then this is going to be the first layer of highlights. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start with getting a little bit of both of these paints on my palette here. So we're just going to do a little bit of that. And then I'm also going to get a little bit of our base color here too. And I have a couple of brushes ready because we're going to use multiple brushes. So for my first brush, I'm going to get a little bit of water. This one, I can see that some of the medium is separated, so I'm just going to mix this together real quick. Get it to where it's got like kind of a pretty good consistency. Okay, and now let's see a good place for this. Actually, these little panels on the back of the leg are kind of great. So these kind of flare out. So naturally, the sun, if we were imagining it coming down, kind of maybe at an angle or directly above, it's going to hit the bottom of these panels before it hits like the part that's right next to the recess. So what we're going to do is imagine that we're kind of cutting these panels in half horizontally. And we're just going to put a little bit of paint there. And we're just going to do that. We're going to come down to this part. The little circle, we're just going to do a little dot here kind of in the top half of that. And we're just going to keep going. And then as it gets closer to the underneath the Space Marine, I'm not going to do like anything further there. And then for this, we're going to get a little bit of this color at kind of the top of the heel. And then we'll do just a little bit here on the kind of raised part at the bottom of the shoe. So you can kind of see what we're doing there. Now, I'm going to clean our brush out. And I'm going to get some of the darker tone. Mix this up a little bit. Okay. Yeah, that's about the consistency we want. You want it to be smooth. And now what we're going to do is the top part, we're just going to very gently kind of tap. We're going to tap along the midline that we created. And you're not going to necessarily need it to be perfect. I'm kind of tapping up and down a little bit. And we're kind of feathering the edge so that it's not such a clean line. Okay, and we can go back over and we can do that again if we want to. I'm going to clean my brush. Get some of that paint off. I'm going to go back to this other color here, the lighter tone, the Olive Drab. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to very gently tap. And we're kind of tapping near that center line, and we're tapping up and down, kind of gently trying to adjust these transitions. Now, the way it looks right now, it's a little messy, right? And again, I think that's okay. Now, I'm almost going, I think technically right here, I'm kind of okay with it the way it looks right here. So this is what I'm going to aim for on every part of the armor, because I'm going to tell you what the next step we're going to do is. We're actually going to do a wash over all of this. But first, we want to get this this next highlight layer. We want to get that done. And then we're going to come in and we'll wash this, and that'll kind of blend a lot of this back together. And then we'll take our lightest tone green, which is Grotesque green for the olive greens. Again, I'm not endorsed by them. They're not paying me any money. I just really like the Warpaint Fanatics range for Army Painter. It's really good. I use a bunch of different types, but the little what do they call it? Color tetrad system that they've developed, I think, is incredibly useful, especially for a new painter. If you're trying to get into this hobby and you're intimidated about what paints to buy, or like what you're looking for there, like they're making it really easy. So we're just going to keep going. So for this next part, we're actually going to have it be, I'm just kind of heading towards the top of this little ridge, and I'm just tapping. For this part, it's actually going to be the opposite, where this side is going to be, the top of this plate is a little more highlighted. And as it goes completely underneath the Plague Marine, it's going to be less visible. So I'm not as worried about making sure that everything underneath is completely perfectly highlighted. I'm going to get some more of that darker color. Make sure that we get just a little bit, and we're going to tap. And I'm basically just kind of gently rubbing the brush, and we're making sure we're not worried about it looking super messy. Like, because kind of what we're doing is we're essentially stippling a little bit. We're trying to hide the fact that we drew a line of paint there. And by doing this, we can make it look a little bit more natural. And when you're painting at this scale, everything you're doing is exaggerated. It's like stage makeup for theater. Everything you're doing is a little exaggerated so that it stands out, because most of the time you're not looking at the miniature this closely, right? If you're playing a game with your friends, chances are you're looking at it from 3 or 4 feet away. I'm just doing the outside of this little bit of the boot there. Okay, and now we're going to rotate. Now for this underneath his back there, I'm not going to actually highlight that. Actually, am I? Technically, that could get a little sun. I might do the lower half for this. Again, we're just going to stipple. We're just going to stipple gently with that lighter color. We're going to get our brush clean. And if you've been watching my videos, you notice that I'm cleaning the brush a lot. You kind of want to. If you leave your brushes for too long, you run the risk of getting junk kind of stuck up in the ferrules, and when it dries, it'll cause your brush to splay, and we don't want that. And you know how I was saying earlier that we'll have time to fix some of our little mistakes? Well, I'm noticing some areas here where there's still some black showing through. Technically, we could have just let the wash cover that. But what I'm doing is, since we have that darker base tone out, we can also use this time to fix some of the areas where we may have missed things. So we're going to go to his next little leg. Actually, he's got one more little panel here. So we're just gonna get a little bit, just tapping it. Just tapping. Okay, and we're just gonna go ahead and do that here down here. Just get a little bit of that paint going, roughly halfway up. Do another little dot on the circle here for the kind of ankle for the boot. And yeah, and you can see here, this is one of the places where we made a little mistake. I've got some metal here. So actually, what we're going to do really quick is we'll clean our brush. We'll get some of that base coat green, the Woodland Camo, and we're going to do a little cleanup. So we're just going to very carefully get that. And since I'm going to be painting these panels soon, I'm putting a little bit of this paint on the rest of the panel too, because that's going to enhance our little stippling that we're doing. Right down here you can see I got some of that metallic on there, fixing that, fixing on this side. So there we go, we kind of cleaned that up. There's still a little bit here on the very edges. There we go. This is more or less okay at this point. I'm not too worried about that. And on this inside part of the leg, you notice I didn't do the highlighting there because it's going to be completely in shadow if this guy was running around outside. And I am trying to go for a somewhat realistic kind of lighting. Like I said, we are kind of exaggerating some things, but in general, like if it's going to be in shadow, you're not going to do a ton of highlighting on it. We might do some, some highlights to represent like the casting of light that happens from other objects like gunfire, or just like the bounce of light reflecting off of the ground. And this area where we did that fresh coat of that green, I'm just getting these panels highlighted on the bottom part again, and we're just tapping. And it looks a little grody, but it's going to look okay. We're just stippling. We're just stippling away. Doing a little bit on the top of this. I'm going to do a little bit on the other side of this leg plate. And I think for this one as well, I might do a little bit on these inner ones, but we're not going to worry too much. And I got a little extra there. It's okay. We're going to clean our brush. And I have a little bit of water. And I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to brush that. And I'm going to pull that paint down. Now, if you can see that, I basically just moved that extra paint and I tried to wick it out. And now if I take that paint that I want to replace, I'll put it in here and I'm going to try to be a little more careful. Because while I am a big fan of not stressing about it, I do, we are trying to make it look nice and we want to do a good job. And so it makes sense to try to do our best, but also be reasonable. These areas are going to be most likely in shadow, but I am putting just a little bit there because I want to. And you know what? Sometimes that's enough. Just wanting to do it. Now, this technique is kind of wet blending. It's kind of stippling. It's kind of me just doing a technique that I do sometimes. It kind of depends. Like I talk about intentionality for painting and our hobby and how we like to work. And for me, I personally tend to do a lot of like army painting. So I'm painting to a lower standard but faster. And for this one, I'm trying to paint to a slightly higher standard than I normally would. I'm kind of okay with the highlights that we've got here. So we're going to move to the next part. I'm going to rotate our little guy. Now for this front of the shoe, we're going to try to get a little bit of the stippling here along that raised part. And I'm going to just tap this color on this. Like, you can kind of imagine it like this is a rounded shape. And as the rounding of it slowly gets towards the edges, you're going to get less light. And so I'm doing something like that. You see how like I'm kind of just getting the top part. I'm leaving the bottom parts largely alone. And you can see that it's still semi-transparent here. Like I'm not getting, it's not fully opaque. And I want to tell you that that's okay. You know, it's, again, like this process is, we're going to be layering up a bunch of colors. We're going to be washing. And you kind of have to trust the process. This is gonna work. You just got to keep trying and keep doing your best. So right here, I'm going to stipple again. Let me get some more paint. So for the knee pad, I'm going to do the same kind of thing. I'm going to start like a little bit below halfway vertically on this raised ridge part. And then I'm just going to gently tap and rotating your little guy if you need to. Sometimes I find that useful. Hold it, you know, upside down or at a different angle just to get, you know, sometimes that makes a difference in trying to reach what you're trying to reach. Now with this part, since these two parts are still relatively fresh, it's going to dry fast, but what we can do now is get our darker tone, that Woodland Camo. We're going to get some of that going, and we're going to stipple. And so we're going to start with this top part here, and we're just going to stipple near the bottom. And for this one, we're going to stipple near the bottom. And I'm basically just trying to be a little erratic. Like I'm trying to break it up, like, and not make it so uniform and so clean. And I think that that's okay. So now we need to get the, so now we've got this much done. Now we can take a brush with just a little bit of water and we can do this. We can gently feather the brush in between those two paints we just put down. And that might help a little bit with the transition if the paint is still wet. And I think it helped a little bit. Helped smooth it out. Now let's do this front leg here. So we're gonna do that, and I'm just gonna, there's a little part here where I've definitely got some paint on the green, and instead of stippling here, I am just gonna paint over that just because this is us fixing some of our mistakes. So trying to make sure I'm getting you guys in camera here. Sometimes it's easy to get in the zone and make some mistakes there. So, and now we're back to stippling. We're back to stippling around a little boil here. Okay, so we're going to do that, and now we're going to get our brush clean. We're going to go to that darker color. Okay, so now we're going to stipple again, and we're going to do it from the bottom part here. Okay. And this part of the leg over here is not really visible because it's behind this little guy. So I'm actually going to leave that just the base green because it's not super visible. And I think that, like I've said in previous videos, if it's kind of hidden, I'm assuming that the shadow there, like there's not going to be a lot of highlighting done to that, you know? So we're getting some more of this light color. And we're just kind of stippling away, stippling our little hearts out. Now some of these, like I just noticed, I got a little bit on the gold trim there. I'm going to see if I can clean that up with a bit of water, clean my brush out. And I'm trying not to get too much water because I don't want to flood the area I just painted. No, I waited too long. But this kind of thing, we're going to be highlighting the trim, and so we'll fix that later. There's one thing I want to hammer home is that don't beat yourself up over small mistakes you can fix. Just be kind to yourself. Okay, so like that looks okay. I'm noticing here, since I've got the darker green, when I was painting the belt strap here for the grenade bandolier, I got some black on the chest, so I'm just going to tidy that up. And do I have any other stuff like that? Probably. Almost certainly. Yeah, here we go. Some places where I got a little bit extra paint on the leg without meaning to. The paint is a little thin on some of these spots, so giving it a little extra is not going to hurt it. A little bit under the arm here. A little bit on the hand. Okay. All right, so let's keep going. We're going to keep getting this. And I think for this one, this particular video at least, I'm going to do this step just for this one model. I'm kind of playing with my format for it because it is a lot to watch me paint every single miniature, and I don't know if anyone wants that. And I mean, ultimately, this is about me doing my hobby and getting, you know, more reps in for my own personal hobby. But I'm gonna kind of play things by ear with this channel. Trying to get a little highlight on the head here. I'm trying to be careful. I don't want to get too much over. I'm gonna just punch my camera over and over again with my brush. Okay. We're almost out of this. Let's go do this other leg, and then we'll start doing the other upper body. I'm kind of jumping around a bunch. And to show, let's just get a little bit of that there. Like, this is kind of the texture I want. Like, it's a little scratchy, it's not perfect. That's kind of ideal for what I'm going for. That really is about right. And what I might do, because I am kind of just going freeform with a lot of this, maybe we'll do this step, and then as this dries, I can show you doing the wash over it as well. Now, let's do little taps here. And while it's wet, we'll try to get the lower part of the leg as well. And this bottom part of the foot. like a little bit around the inside of this arm here. Okay, now we're going to get that darker color again, that woodland camo. We're just going to get a little bit of that. And it's getting a little, we're getting a little bit of watery. And I'm going to stipple the lower part of this, trying to kind of, as effectively as we can, blend the transition between these different areas. And I think we're doing okay. We're doing an okay job of that. Are we perfect? Nah, that's okay. We don't need to be perfect. Okay. And then I'm going to do a little bit on the sides of this leg too. I was noticing how sharp that looked, and I do want to try to make that as gentle as I can. Okay, I'm thinking that that's actually starting to shape up pretty nicely, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now let's keep on moving. Let's get ourselves going. We don't have much more to do for this guy, so I'm going to get the top of his elbow here, and I'm just going to stipple a little bit, and then side of the hand. We're going to try to get the top of the hand. I'm going to try to be careful. I don't want to get too much. And then the fingers, I'm just going to like tap gently on each finger. My brush is a little wonky, but we're doing our best. So for this one, it's a curved shape. So the highlight for this is actually going to be kind of in the middle. And it's going to go out to the sides slightly. And it'll get darker as it hits to the sides of the gauntlet. And then it's going to be kind of similar for this as well. It's going to be kind of centralized, the highlight that we want to do here. And it'll get a little bit darker as it goes down to the sides. So we're going to wash our brush again, and we're going to get some of that watered down woodland camo. Okay. And now we're going to go back to the elbow, because that's where we started. And we're just going to stipple along that edge. Stipple along the edge of the hand. I'm going to try to just draw a thin line next to the trim. And then for this, we're just going to go, try to get both sides of the gauntlet. Just tap a little bit. Tap a little bit. Try to remove some of those sharp edges of what we were doing. Try to get the head has the same thing. We're just going to try to get rid of some of those sharp edges with this watered down color. This part here, I'm basically just trying to draw a line that's close to the trim. And I think I'm okay with that too. So let's get this other arm. We're kind of in the home stretch for different parts of this model that we were going to do a layer of highlighting on. So let's try to get that done. So this one, we got like a little bit of highlighting. It would be like right here. Now I'm noticing I didn't do the trim on this guy, his little gauntlet here, which is okay. We can fix that. Now the main feature of this particular gauntlet appears to be this exposed like meat worm thing. So I'm not going to worry about doing a bunch of highlighting on the gauntlet itself. We're getting a little bit here next to it, but we're going to darken that up, and we'll fix that. Okay, I'm just trying to draw a thin line on the fingers to get like a little bit of definition there. Top of the hand. I just try to get like a little bit on the top of these fingers. I don't want to get too much. We're going to get a little bit more paint. And let's try to do, you can see some places where we've got metallic paint on the shoulder pad itself. So I'm just going to tap. And I'm not getting too close to this iconography here. I'm just doing a little bit. And if anything, the tapping, it'll help give like a little texture as well. Okay. And then we're going to get that watered down Woodland Camo. Now, I'm just going to try to do a little bit tapping the edges here, trying to just smooth out any areas where I've applied it, trying to get a little bit over that mistake I made earlier. So that's what I'm talking about when we're like fixing things as we go. Okay. And for the hand, I think I'm okay with that. And I might actually highlight his inner forearm. I feel like that would be getting enough sun in this particular angle, so we can just kind of get like just a little bit. Now what you can do is like even with your brush still dirty, you could do something like this where you just get a little bit, you dip into your other paint, get a little bit of water, mix them together, and then you can just go like this. And that kind of did what I wanted, but not entirely. Okay. Now, I think at this point, we're kind of good with that. We're going to leave it like that for right now. So, next thing is we're going to look at the ochre stuff on this guy. So we started off with Tundra Taupe for the darkest parts. And what we're going to do is we're going to highlight with Wasteland clay. And so we're going to do the same thing that we're just doing. We're going to have both of these paints at hand. A little bit of each. And we're not going to need a ton for this guy in particular. He doesn't have a lot of taupe on him. But we'll get a little bit. And so let's take a look at where he actually has. He has these horns. He has... I think the horns may be the only thing that he's got that needs this. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with the highlight color. This is actually too watery. So we're gonna come over here. I'm gonna dry off my brush a little bit. Okay, let's take a little whirl at this. So I actually kind of want to just get most of this with this lighter color. And this is way watered down. Is this brush already falling apart? Okay, well, let me shake this paint again. This was like my new brush too. The fact that there's hairs already coming out of it is, oh wow. Yeah, I just very gently touched that and like a whole string of the hairs came out. That is not great. Okay. Well, that's fun. Okay, well, let's try this again. Okay, that's better coverage. That's better coverage. I'm going to leave it darker at the base. You could do it however you'd like. I know some people want it darker at the base. Some people like it lighter at the base and darker near the tips of the horns. I'm doing it this way. And we get a little bit there, a little bit there. Okay. This is not a perfect coat, but that's kind of okay. Now I'm going to get the darker taupe here. We're going to get just a little bit. We're going to get it thinned quite a bit, actually. And then I'm just going to get a little bit more water, actually. Okay. I'm going to stipple, or at least try to. For these little ones, it's a little tough, but I am not deterred. Okay, so honestly, I think that's all we really needed for the taupes for this guy. Now, what we can do is I want to do a little experiment. And we're going to do a side-by-side. So I've got Military Shade Wash, which is a green wash from Army Painter. And I'm thinking about doing one side washed with that. And I'm thinking the other side, I'm going to try a Plaguebearer Contrast flesh tone. Now, I'm going to do it, though, on the back part of the model. And I'm going to do one leg in one and one leg in the other. So I'm thinking its left leg, I'm going to do the Military Shade. And its right leg, I'm going to do the Plaguebearer Flesh. And then I'm going to see which I like better in terms of just how it looks. So I'm going to give these a good shake. Okay, let's get 2 drops of that. I don't think we're going to need a ton, because we're just doing a test. And that Plaguebearer Flesh, we'll get a bit of that and put that out here too. And we'll just get a couple brushfuls on our palette and close that up. So since I already got it on my paintbrush, I'm going to start with the Plaguebearer Flesh first. And so we're just going to brush that over those armor parts that we highlighted earlier on the right-hand leg specifically. And I can already tell you, like, that looks nice. Like, I'm really actually liking that quite a bit. We'll see how it looks when it dries, but I do like that tone. So for this other one, this Military Shade, which is also a green wash, but this one is a darker wash, which I'm assuming it's like for like historicals or whatever, but ooh, that's also quite nice. Oh, you know what? Maybe I spoke too soon. Like, this might be the winner. So I want to get a little bit more and try to do it on this little part down here. Ooh, I like that. So, I mean, this is 2 very distinct different styles, and it kind of depends on what you're going for. This is a more vibrant green. I think I like this. I think I like this a lot, the Military Shade. I'm liking that enough that I think I'm going to go ahead and we're going to put that shade all over the model. And then I'm going to wait for this part to dry, and then I'll give that a dose of this as well. Now you notice here we've got it pooling in the recesses, and this is what I was talking about when I was mentioning that the wash step can hide a multitude of like mistakes that we make. And if it gets too much, you can use your brush to kind of suck up some of the extra if you feel like you've got too much wash in a particular area. But I honestly really like the way that looks. And so I'm going to leave that there. But we're going to be mindful of that as we're applying it everywhere else. So now we're going to continue just putting this all over the model. And I'm trying to avoid putting it on the pink areas because those are going to have their own wash. Yeah, I'm really liking that. I think that looks quite good. Okay. And I'm just being careful that it's not like pooling up anywhere. I'm trying to be mindful of that. But we do kind of want a little bit in the recesses. We don't want it to be super thin. Like I like a little bit getting in here like this here. Like you can get that dark line. It just adds definition to your model. I'm putting it all over this kind of plate here. We're going to put some under the arm and on this little bit of metal exposed there. I apologize for the sound of the sirens. I'll see if I can edit that out. But yeah, no, I'm quite enjoying the look of that. I was a little heavy right here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean my brush, dry it off a bit. I'm just going to very gently soak up some of that because I went a little hard on that one. So, and also up here I'm putting a little too much, so I'm going to take a bit of that off with a clean brush. Okay. Yeah, I'm really liking that wash. So let's get some more of that going. I'm genuinely surprised because like I was ready to use Plaguebearer Flesh on this entire model as like the shade for this particular tone of green. And I mean Plaguebearer, that'd be going with Death Guard. But I actually like this darker look. I think it looks good. I think it looks kind of grimy, and like that's what I want. I'd like to get a little bit more around the fingers here. Washes are great for this, where you can see it like it really gets in between the fingers and it helps give you some definition to some of these parts where it's like it's tiny and fiddly, like the hands, like instant definition by using a wash there. Now we're going to be careful because we don't want to get this everywhere, but I am going to try to get some on this panel here. And I do want it around the base of the horns. I don't want to get it all over the horns themselves, but I do want a little bit around the horns because, like, if you look at that, you can see how it's kind of pooling and it's a little heavy around the horns. So that's more than I want, but I do want that effect. So we're going to take our brush, we're getting it clean, and we're just going to try to soak up a little bit of that. We're going to try to just soak up a little bit because we don't want it to be that flooded, but we do want a little bit of that darkness at the base of each of the horns. Ooh, yeah, that's looking good. I'm really quite happy with this. Okay, let's get the little elbow pad here. Okay, that's looking quite nice. Yeah, like, oof, that is exactly what the doctor ordered, I think. And now, since we're doing this wash, I'm also going to get like this back area here that we're not putting a lot of attention to, because just giving a little wash on some of this stuff gives it definition And we don't need to worry about highlighting all that, but just a little bit of love there goes a long way. And like under the arm and stuff like that. Matter of fact, I'm going to do a little bit more under the hand here. Just a wee bit. Yeah, I think that's really, that was surprising. But I mean, that's kind of one of the nice things about doing this and experimenting is we wouldn't have known that if we didn't try, you know? And this is my hope is that sometimes you'll be emboldened. Try something different. Go outside of your comfort zone and, you know, try a new technique. Because that's what I'm going to be doing. And you're going to watch me mess up a lot. Like, just in all honesty, you're going to watch me mess up a lot. But we're going to have fun doing it. And that's the important part. I'm trying to avoid the pooling down in there. But I do want it to pool a little bit in some places. I'm actually going to put a little bit more on this armor guard on the back of them. Yeah, no, that's quite good. Normally you should let a wash like this sit for about 30 minutes before you futz with it. I'm going to try to just put this over this right now because in the spirit of experimentation, let's just see. Let's just see if I can do this without messing it up too much. Interesting. That leg is going to be pretty bright. If I wanted, and I don't know that I do, I could use Plaguebearer flesh on this leg so that these both look similar and then give it a wash of the military shade over again. I don't know if I care. I don't know. I might, you know, me discussing it right now is making me think I should. So I'm going to. Actually, I have a little bit on the palette still, so let's use this little bit. Waste not, want not. So a little bit of this. We're gonna do just this back of the leg. We'll just to get that same kind of intensity. Yeah, okay. So the back of the legs are going to be a little bright, but we might be able to punch these down with some more washes, which I think I'm going to probably do. Because this is not the first wash that's going to touch this model. Let's just say that right now. But yeah, I like that dark wash. That dark wash on everything I think is quite good. I didn't do the head, so we're going to do that really quick. Yeah, that's quite nice. I like that. I also want to get under his arm here, like in this joint. Especially these areas where it's like you can't really see it, like getting in those like little nooks and crannies, I think go a long way. Again, the fingers, an excellent place to use a wash. We just have to make sure we're not letting it flood too much, just a little bit in there. And yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. Well, you know, we did this one set of washes, and we're going to let those sit, but I think we're going to do more washes on this same model, believe it or not. The next wash we're going to do is for the metallics. I want to do, let's see. I think I'm going to do like a Seraphim Sepia for all the copper bits, because that kind of brown I think will be quite good. So let's go ahead and crack into this. Our brush is clean. We're going to get a nice hefty dollop of this, and we're just going to get it on all our copper bits. And I am applying this pretty heavily. And honestly, I think I'm going to put this on all the metal because the kind of like the brown, the dirtiness of it, I think works really well with Death Guard. And so I'm not afraid of being a little generous. That's maybe a little too much. Spoke too soon. I want to be able to see those little lines. But like, the metal parts of this backpack, the little grenades, like you can see even just this part right here, like adding this wash to the metallic automatically gives it character. Like it looks like a little grimy, it looks like a little rusty, and I think that is excellent. Now this part we're going to be a little more careful, and we're going to do the wash on like the trim here, and the trim, oh, it really just looks great with that wash on it. And I'm not doing anything new. Like, this is a technique that is tried and true. Lots of people using this, or like, Agrax Earthshade is another color that is very commonly used for kind of dirtying up some metallics. Get a little bit on that. And honestly, the Agrax or Seraphim Sepia on the green armor itself, also probably pretty good. Like, especially for Death Guard, I believe that you can really go to town with washes on these guys. Like, genuinely, it's not going to hurt it too much. Get a little bit on this chainmail, a little bit around these bolts. Oh yeah, I should get the bolt gun. Get some of that on there. Yes, that looks good. Okay. And we're just gonna keep tapping that. Also, I'm gonna do a little bit on these metal bits on the back of the legs. We never decided what those are. We may never know. And for our little buddy, he's got his little pile of grenades down here he's hanging out with. I mean, we would be remiss not to get some washes on those. Technically, that's a place where we could use that little bit of taupe as well. You know what? Because he's got tiny baby horns, and we still got that paint on our palette. So let me get a little bit of that, try to get a smooth amount. I'm just going to do a little bit on the ends. Cleaning my brush as I go. Some of that taupe is running down the back of the pin on his little head, so I'm going to just clean that up a bit. This is me trying to do too much at once is kind of the problem there. Okay, so next thing we can do for layering up is we have our pinks for the fleshy bits. We are using, we were using moldy wine as kind of our base color for a lot of the fleshy bits. And I think we're going to layer up a little bit with elderflower. So I'm going to give this a little shake. We're going to rotate our canvas, not canvas, our palette a little bit. Just a tiny bit, because this guy doesn't actually have a lot of goopy guys on him. But we'll just get a little bit of that. And we're going to focus on our little friend here. And I'm going to try to get like his little lip, the top of his lip, his little eyebrows, the top of his head where I stabbed him with green at one point. I'm going to get, a little bit on his hand here, a little bit on his forearm. And for this one, I am just kind of He's so small, I'm just kind of gently drawing in, like I can see this like little fold of skin here. I'm just gonna, you know, get a little bit of pink on that. The raised part of his like haunch, just gonna get a little bit of paint on that. The back of his calf, just a little bit, and then his little toes, we'll get a little bit. And I'm just cleaning my brush again. And let's get some more of that pink. I want it smooth. And we're going to get, let's see, the top of his belly. I'm going to do like a little bit of stippling. And then I'm going to go over this side of his belly. He's actually got a little gold paint on his stomach, so I'm going to cover that up while we're here. And I'm going to try to highlight little parts of him. And the paint I'm using, you can tell, is not fully opaque. Like, it's definitely still translucent. And that's kind of what we want, because we're going to layer this on, and then I'm going to have another, layer of highlight, and then we're going to give these little guys a wash too. And it's going to bring a lot of this down. It's going to unify a lot of it, and it's going to make it look nicer. So I'm just going to, like, his whole back of his head, I'm giving a little dose, and I'm going to get some on the side of his arms, back of his little leg. And then, like, the back of his body, we can't really see. So I'm not going to worry about that part, but I am going to try to get his, like, little toes and, like, the part of him that's visible to the person, you're going to be playing with. So I'm already really liking how this is drawing. Like, this is looking really quite good, I think. And you know what? This is not as egregious as I thought. I will probably, with the other models, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use that military shade from the get-go. But yeah, a little bit of pink highlight there. He's got a little pink tube here. I almost missed that. So let's get just a little bit of a highlight on the edge of that. And let's see if I can get the camera to focus. And then just a little bit on the edge here. And now any of these like little boils, I'm going to do a very small circle in kind of the top corner of each of these, or just like a small circle on the inside. For the areas that are open wounds, I'm going to highlight some of the exposed bits, like the edges of the wound opening. And I'll try to do that down here on the back of the foot. I'm going to try to leave that dark pink in there as well. Oh, he's got some on his arm as well. This is good. I need to take my time and kind of make sure I catch this stuff. So we're just trying to get the edge. There we go. He's got a nice big boil on his leg here. So we're going to try to get another little, kind of the top half of the radius of the boil. And this one's small enough, I'm just going to do a dot in the middle. And then for this bit on his arm, this one has like a texture to it. It's got like the little lines like an earthworm would. So I'm just going to see if I can I'm just gently dragging my brush over it, like barely touching it, and it's kind of catching those raised bits. And that's exactly what I want. And if you don't feel confident doing that, it's okay. You can kind of, like, I'll paint over it just entirely. What you can also do is, like, just paint the pink over the top of this. And when we do a wash, we're going to use, like, kind of a ready pink wash. And it should get into these creases so you don't have to worry about, the hardcore precision of everything. And I realized we didn't put wash on our grenade. So we're going to do that. Luckily, we still have that wash nearby, so we're going to get that Seraphim Sepia. We're just going to grab a little bit of that, and we're going to get it all over that grenade. There's so many little bits and pieces on all of these models. And I mean, that's kind of fun. It's like a little scavenger hunt trying to find everything. But yeah, I'm definitely missing stuff, and that's okay. Like, when we see it, we address it. Okay. So this guy is actually looking pretty solid in terms of just like this next layer of paints. The back of the legs are a little different, you know, that's okay, but we were experimenting. But yeah, no, I'm actually quite pleased with how this is going right now. Getting a little closer for this guy. So yeah, it's a little rough. I mean, I'm getting some staining right in here. I think that just adds character, especially with how gross this guy is in general. And there's bits on the trim where we're going to have to clean up, and that's okay. And like, this is going to look messy, and that's fine. When we do the other highlights for this, we'll get that cleaned up too. But yeah, we got a little bit of that pink there. This Seraphim Sepia for all the metallics up on the armor is looking good. You got a little bit on the metal for the bolter, for the grenade there, for the metal bits of the face. Now, for the eyes on this guy, I might want to try doing a glow. I'm not going to worry about it right now because he's covered in wash. So I'll have to wait till he's dry, but that'll be a later step where we try to like see if we can make him look like he's going to glow or something. And I'm also noticing the side of his hand is like he's not fully painted there. Now, I'm going to get a little bit of my green. We're going to go with Woodland Camo, which was our base color for the armor panels. And I'm going to get a little bit of that. And I'm going to see if I can just very gently add a little bit of paint to make that look less kind of stark, because we want it to look like it's actually doing something, like it's actually been painted, not, you know, whoopsie doodle, I forgot a bunch of stuff, which I'm gonna do. So, okay. So yeah, this is basically the step. I'm gonna follow this for the rest of the guys. Because I mean, like, this took an hour, but we did basically layering for all the armor, a little bit of layering for the pink. We did washes on everything. And yeah, so I'm basically going to repeat that for our next guys. I think I'm going to do that off camera though, because, you know, like, as you're seeing, like, these videos are getting long. And it is going to be the same steps for everybody. It's a little different. For the ones that are weird, like we've got the like the sorcerer guy, when we do the special effects, like the shift paints on this, don't worry, I'm going to make, like, that'll be a dedicated video. Like, we'll be showing that in great detail. I don't want to leave that out. But yeah, for everything else, like, a lot of this is like, it's going to be the same principles. We're going to be aiming for the kind of like the raised areas to get these highlights, and we're going to stipple. We're going to get a little bit of highlighting for these kind of fleshy bits, and then we're going to apply washes to all the armor, all the metallics. And yeah, also any taupe areas like the cloth, or in this case, little bits of parchment, any horns, we'll make sure we'll get all of that. But yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll stop this video here, and then we can pick up next time, and we'll do, I think for the next video, what we're going to have to do is, we're going to do wash for our pink bits. We will do some cleanup highlights for the metallics, and we'll do some cleanup highlights using our lightest green color, which is going to be Grotesque green. I'm going to use this one for kind of the extreme raised areas. And we'll be using this pretty lightly, so it's not like you're going to use a ton of this, but we are going to use a bit here and there just to kind of catch things. And yeah, I think that that's that. That'll be next video. We'll be focusing on all that. All right. And if you're still watching at this point, thank you. And if you like the videos, please give it a like. And if you want to see more of what I'm working on, feel free to subscribe. And if not, that's okay too. Either way, I hope you're having fun and that you're doing more of your hobby, and be kind to yourself. I'll talk to you later.